We need an Antichrist checklist to spot the true Antichrist before he rises. Think about what's been going on. Donald Trump's dramatic first moves as president, especially about Gaza and vaccines. Mohammed bin Salman's aggressive plans to divide Israel. Elon Musk and AI and Neuralink. The Pope, King Charles, Jared Kushner, Yuval Noah Harari, Obama. So many possible Antichrist candidates. We need a checklist of the traits and prophecies the Bible gives for identifying the Antichrist before he sits in the temple of God and declares himself to be God. Signs to provide us with an early warning of who he might be, and signs to check off candidates, check them off our list. We need a prophetic Antichrist checklist. This is Bible teacher Nelson Walters, and the problem is there are approximately 200 separate prophecies about the man of sin in the Bible. Many of them are unknown to most of us. For instance, we just recorded a video about the Antichrist as seen in the book of Psalms. There are over 20 separate Psalms, each with 2 or 3 aspects about the Antichrist. In just one chapter of Revelation 13, alone that chapter has 27 prophecies about the beast. 27 in one chapter. So you are probably wondering how you can know what to look for and how to sort out what's most important and relevant to today from the others. The key to this is the prophecy we mentioned before about the Antichrist sitting in the temple of God and proclaiming himself to be God. The Bible refers to this sign as the abomination of desolation. It is the sign of the end times. It marks the beginning of the Great Tribulation and the reign of the Antichrist. Let's look at it in 2 Thessalonians 2, 4 through 6. The man of lawlessness is revealed, the son of destruction, who opposes and exalts himself against every so-called God or object of worship, so that he takes his seat in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God. And you know what is restraining him now, so that he may be revealed in his time. This is a one-of-a-kind sign that Jesus expects everyone on the face of the earth to see, likely meaning it's going to be broadcast over the whole world. And when Christians see it, they will know without a doubt who the Antichrist is at that point. The man who sits in the temple of God is the man of sin. It's the revealing of the Antichrist, as this passage clearly states. Now, the problem is that once that happens, those people will be in the Great Tribulation. It's almost too late to know who the Antichrist is. So prior to this event, we might want to have a good idea who he is. But we can't really know with certainty until after this event. Everyone with a knowledge of the scriptures will have zero doubt about who he is then. But what we want is a checklist of prophetic traits or prophecies to identify him as best we can now before he arises. And that's what we're doing today. We're assembling a biblical checklist of 5 signs that we should be able to see before the abomination of desolation that should help us identify the Antichrist, or at least help us check people off the list. This is easier than you think. 200 prophecies sounds daunting, but most of those apply after the abomination, not before it. We don't need the ones after it for identification purposes. Once the abomination takes place, we know who the man of sin is. Those other prophecies are only going to tell us what he's going to do. For instance, we don't need to see who it is that is enforcing the mark of the beast. We know the beast and his false prophet. This happens after the abomination. However, the number of the beast's name will always calculate to be 666. So that is one of the clues. See how it works? But let's start at the beginning. The first clue is, what ethnic group will the Antichrist come from? Who are his people? That will be the same from the moment of his birth. Daniel 9:26 provides us with a famous but misinterpreted prophecy about this. I bet you know this verse. And after the 62 weeks, an anointed one, that is Jesus, shall be cut off and shall have nothing. And the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. From this we learn that the people, we're talking about the people of the prince who shall come will destroy Jerusalem and the temple. That happened in AD 70 when the Roman legions leveled Jerusalem to the ground and burned the holy temple. Jesus' well-known prophecy from Matthew 24 tells us that not one stone of the temple buildings was left upon another. Daniel tells us that the people of the prince who is to come, who will eventually enforce a covenant for 7 years, that prince, his people did this. We know that Titus was the Roman general in charge at that time, but he did not make a 7-year covenant. So the prince is a future prince. It couldn't be Titus. A prince yet to come, most likely the Antichrist. And it is his people who destroyed the temple and the city. The Hebrew word for people in this verse is am, which carries an ethnic connotation to it. Literally, it says the ethnic group of the prince are those who destroyed the temple. So the knee-jerk reaction of most scholars has been to say, well, see, the Antichrist will be a Roman because they were Roman legions. And that is possible, but it's not the only possibility because there were other ethnic groups present in the Roman armies that actually outnumbered the Italians. Scholar Joel Richardson, most known for the Islamic Antichrist theory, did a lot of research on the ethnic makeup of the 4 Roman legions that invaded Israel, and you should get a shout out for that. Roman legions involved in the invasion were ethnically diverse, not strictly Italians, as we said, including large contingents from the Middle East. The Romans tended to pay other people to fight their wars for them. The 10th Legion was raised in Italy, but by AD 70, it contained significant numbers of recruits from Syria and Turkey. The 5th Legion likely included mostly Greek and Balkan soldiers. The 12th Legion had mostly Turkish and Armenian recruits, and the 15th Legion, which had been stationed in the eastern provinces before the siege, was made up almost entirely of Syrians and Greeks. Beyond the legions, auxiliary forces played a crucial role in the siege. These were extra people that they just conscripted off the streets. They included Arabs, Syrians, Edomites, and Philistines. Josephus, the Jewish historian who chronicled the war between Rome and Israel, noted that Syrian and Arab troops were particularly brutal in their treatment of a Jewish population more than the rest of the Romans. According to Josephus in his book, Wars of the Jews, the temple in Jerusalem was set on fire by soldiers from the eastern provinces, likely Syrians and other auxiliaries. So Middle Easterners are just as likely, if not more likely, than Italians as the ethnic group of the Antichrist. So that's his ethnic background. The next trait for the checklist is what area of the world does the Antichrist come out of when he rises? Daniel 8:9 tells us the little horn, who is the Antichrist, arises from the region that includes the landmass of Alexander the Great's former empire. That includes Greece, Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Iran, and portions of Egypt today. Micah 5:5 refers to the Antichrist as the Assyrian. And if we take that to be a clue, this further narrows the area to Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and Iran. The third trait we need to look at is what kind of physical appearance will the Antichrist have? Because that's not really going to change either. What will he look like? In Daniel 8:23, we are told he will be a king of fierce countenance. In Daniel 7:20, we learn he will be more stout than his fellows. The word stout here suggests greater stature, maybe taller, maybe bigger. or a dominance compared to his other rulers, the 10 kings. So this verse suggests he will have kind of an intimidating, stern, or powerful presence. And like we said, he's probably going to be physically bigger. What personality traits will he possess? In Daniel 8:23 through 26, we see he understands dark sentences, or puzzles, or could even be queries. This implies intelligence, craftiness, and possibly an exceptional ability in AI. He destroys wonderfully and shall magnify himself in his heart. He will be a ruthless killer. He'll destroy wonderfully. And his arrogance and self-exaltation is going to be evident. He will be a bragger. So these are 4 of the 5 main clues. Before we get to the 5th one, which is the number of his name, 666, let's look at the candidates for Antichrist we listed at the beginning of the video and see how they match up. It will be enlightening, to say the least. Let's start with President Donald J. Trump. I'm sure you want to hear about him first. Trump has publicly acknowledged his ethnic heritage, saying, "I'm proud of my Scottish and German roots." So he's a Northern European and doesn't match the ethnic backgrounds of the Antichrist. Trump came up out of the United States, not part of Alexander's old empire, so he doesn't qualify there either. He is stout, heavier and taller than many, but he doesn't really have a stern look. Often he's pictured as smirking or smiling. In terms of his personality, he is certainly a bragger, maybe one of the greatest of all times, but not known for craftiness or AI abilities. So Trump only scores 2 out of 7 on our trait index. What about this guy, Mohammed bin Salman? Ethnically, he is a match. He comes from Alexander's empire also, although he isn't an Assyrian by birth. He is 6 foot tall, which is not really stout. His countenance is often described as imposing, but in moments of nervousness, he's been reported to have like a lower lip that kind of quivers uncontrollably, a trait that has been noticed about him by many. So he wouldn't be of stern face. He is intelligent, graduated 2nd in his law class, but he's not an AI expert. However, he invests in AI to the extreme. He is self-confident, but he's not a bragger like Trump. However, he is a known killer. The Khashoggi murder testifies to that. MBS then scores 4 out of 7 on our scale. What about Elon Musk? A lot of people are wondering about him. He came out of South Africa, not Alexander's empire. And he has clarified that he is of British English descent, not an Afrikaner, and not a Middle Easterner or Southern European. He's 6'2", so he's kind of borderline stout, but he does not have a stern face. He has a serious expression most of the time, but not stern. He is intelligent in like an off-the-scale way, and he's an AI whiz. Musk is a self-promoter, but not really a bragger like Trump. We could probably give him a score of 2 on the scale of 7 in these traits. Now, what about former President Obama? He came out of America, not the former Alexandrian Empire, and he's of British and African descent. He's not of stern face. He smiles frequently. He isn't overly tall either. He's just 6'1". He's above average intelligence, but not Musk brilliant. And he isn't a bragger. Some would consider his stand on freedom of choice one that shows indifference to life, so he could be considered a killer. So he only scores 1 on the scale of 7. What about the Pope? A lot of people want to know about him. Pope Francis was born Jorge Mario Bergoglio in Buenos Aires, Argentina. He is the son of Italian immigrants, so he does have the right ethnic heritage, but didn't come out of Alexander's empire. He came out of South America. He's not a genius, nor an AI whiz. He's not a self-promoter, and he's not a killer. He doesn't have a stern face, and he's only 5'9". The Pope only scores a 1 on a scale of 7 also. Ah, but what about King Charles? Lots has been written about Prince Charles lately. His family has intermarried into all the royal houses of Europe, but these are all Northern Europeans, so he's a Northern European. Came out of England, not Alexander's empire, stands only 5'8". He often maintains a composed and serious appearance, but also has been known to be lighter and somewhat humorous. He is of average intelligence and seriously lacks confidence, so he doesn't seem to be Antichrist material in that way either. So Charles actually scores a 0 on the scale of 7. He has none of the traits. What about Yuval Noah Harari? A lot of people want to know about this maniac. He is Jewish from Eastern European background, so he came out of Israel, which was part of Alexander's empire. He is short and slight of build, not a bragger or a killer. He has a serious but not a stern demeanor. He's intelligent, and AI and transhumanism are among his greatest interests. So Harari scores 2 on a scale of 7. For fun, I wanted us to take a look at another candidate we did not mention up front, mystery candidate, Ahmed al-Sharaa, the new leader of Syria. His family were Syrian-born from the Golan Heights area. This is interesting because it also fits a known idea that the Antichrist will be from the tribe of Dan, which comes from the Golan Heights area. Very interesting. He gets a bonus point for that none of the other candidates get. His height is not known, but in pictures, he always appears taller than those around him. He's known for his intelligence and strategic leadership. He has the stern demeanor that contrasts with his efforts to reshape his public image, but he is a jihadi. And he is a known killer of thousands. So he scores an 8 on the scale of 7. Yes, he matches all the traits and we gave him a bonus point. I don't think he's the Antichrist, but you know what? There are plenty more like him out there in the Middle East. It's this profile of person we should be looking for, I think. So, okay, what about that 5th clue, the number 666? This might be the greatest clue of all. The number of the Antichrist's name will be 666, according to Revelation 13, 17 through 18. His name will calculate to 666. We described this in detail in this previous video, where we applied the technique to some modern leaders that we looked at in this video. It requires a whole video to go over this. So click right here if you are interested in finding out what those scores are for these leaders. How an early church father who met John the Apostle told us how to calculate it and why this method matters. Till then, this is Nelson, and I'll see you there.